Hello everybody and a very warm welcome back to the latest episode of Hidden Jewels of Soul and Disco. And this week we're gonna have a special episode as we are featuring one of Soul's most mysterious albums. And I'm also pointing out how to identify this certain album from reissues, because the reissues are almost 100% identical to the originals. So stay tuned for a very exciting episode as we are featuring Smoke. Smoke was founded in 1970 in Kansas City, so they were most likely a local group. And they had many appearances in the Royal Bunny Club in the same city, so they must have had a great time. During the 70s, they did some touring with the Dells and the Undisputed Truth. But who are the members of Smoke? Well, let's start with Larry Brown, who was also a member of one of Philadelphia's International's most famous acts, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. Then we have Mr. Melvin Manning, who is the younger brother of Martha Whitney, and the brothers Ernest and Arthur Malone. So why is this record kind of mysterious? Well, here it is in all of its glory. And you have to consider one fact. It was a Kansas City group. They were touring mostly in the South and Southwest and were limited to that. So then they had the opportunity to bring their record out. And they did the recording in Chicago. And Jay Bridge made sure that Chicago's best musicians at that time were available for the recording. All the tracks except the last one were written by Elmer Overtone. There's absolutely zero information where he came from. He did some records. The last information you get is from 1984, but there's actually nothing known. And he wrote some absolutely stunning material. And you know what? Let's have a listen.
The familiar place that we first met. You say you don't remember, how could you forget? I've already lost you, baby, lost you. The familiar song that we used to...
It's not as smooth or as silky as a recording from the Philadelphia International label or what would have been done in the soul genre at that time. It has its edges, it's more rough, but that's what makes this record somehow very special, and it gives the record a certain vibe, at least in my opinion. So all songs written by Elmer except the last one, Make Believe. All the musicians perfectly. You have concerning Elmer no information. You have you have some information about the musicians, like I said, they were the top notch at that time. But there's one person who absolutely stands out in that record. And so you will see or hear what kind of quality you can expect and why this is considered a holy grail. Because you have, for the arrangement, you have Benjamin F. Wright. Well, Benjamin F. Wright was a musical director in 1975 for Barry White, for Aretha Franklin, for The Temptations, for Gladys Knight, for all those people. So he absolutely knew what he was doing. One of the greatest arranger producers you could find at that time. And he is doing it on this album. So here's the back and here's the front. Why I want you to be aware when you want this record as an original. Well, the P-Vine label did 2 reissues of this album. And I do have a love-hate relationship with P-Vine. I have some of their releases. These are records from TSG label, a record I wanted always to have, never could find it. It's more than $3,000 if you ever find it. So I love the fact that P-Vine is releasing these on vinyl, so I have the opportunity to listen to it on vinyl. As far as I know, they do needle drops, so it's not an analog anything, so they just do the needle drop, digital enhancement, and that's it. So they did the same with Smoke. The first time in 1996, and did it in a limited run, and it was sold out immediately. In 2021, they did another reissue. And once again, it's very, very desirable. You can get this reissue between 30 and 50 or 80 euro, depending where you're looking. But if you find it for 30, that's a good price. The thing why I'm not so happy with P-Vine is they absolutely to 100% duplicate the original. So with Smoke, that's the same thing. You have 3 indicators to know that you are having a reissue in hands. Because a good friend of mine had for 8 years, around 8 years, and he's a record dealer himself, he thought he bought an original. It was written on a sticker on the outer sleeve. The cover looked kind of old. He was in a hurry and he thought, okay, this looks old. The color of the label is the same. And he bought for around 200 euro or 250 euro a record which he thought was the original. It was not. So I tell you now what you have to look for. All right. First of all, on the front, they look absolutely the same. I wish that P-Vine on the 2021 release, I think they put a barcode on the back. At least it's on the obi. I don't know if it's on the back of the cover, but if it's on the back of the cover, you have absolutely no doubt that's a reissue. But the cover looks the same, and for some people it's today very easy to make a cover look old if you want to put the effort in it. But if you are getting a record for 30 and you can resell it for 150 and 200 euro, you might want to do that effort. But yeah. Okay, so on the back, you know that's a reissue if there is under this sentence, I hope you can see that, there you have very small and tiny written the P-Vine copyright. It's under this text, and the text is onward up the economic main street. Onward, yes. So it's written under this sentence and it's very small. On the version my friend bought, there was black tape from this side to this side, and it was actually the same color, so at first or the second look it was very difficult to look at. So if there's copyright under the sentence, it's at least a cover from the reissue. Alright, let's talk about the label. My version is a kind of brown, I hope. So in the light it looks red, but it's kind of brown, and the P-Vine label is exactly the same color, and it has exactly the same writing. It has exactly the same numbers in the death wax. But if you are looking, I put a picture. You have side 2 and you have side 1, and above the side 2 and side 1 they have printed their catalog number, which is PLP 6721, and they have that on both sides above the side number. And another factor to know that you have the original, and I blend in a picture, is that on side 1 the 5 is very, very close to the text. Let's see, to the text where it says J-Bridge Recordings, and it's above the G, and it's very close. So on the reissue you have a lot of space between the 5 and the letter D. So these are at least some points to spot that you are handling or dealing with a reissue. Also, the paper on this cover. Like I said, it's possible to make these things look old. It's also possible if you are having used records that sometimes smell like, so it's also possible to recreate that. But the original has some thick brown, darkish cardboard. And usually the reissues, let's show you that, they don't have that. That's absolutely white, pristine white, also thicker cardboard, but it's pristine white. To fake that, I have no idea how to do that. But like I said, you are in a hurry and the seller tells you, wow, this is now your opportunity, but I have 3 other people coming up, so buy now or, it's gone. So, yeah. So this can happen. So my advice is always, if you see a gray record, a record you always wanted to have, and you say, wow, the price is something I can absolutely afford and I just can't believe it, take a deep breath. Look at this record. More often, it's not that the seller is trying to sell you something. It can happen accidentally. On eBay, it happens so often that people just on one way misjudge the record and you get a very desirable record for cheap money because they didn't know what they were having. On the other side, it can actually accidentally happen that someone thinks, wow, I have here the holy grail record and I want $200 for it, which is actually a reissue. So always request on Discogs and on eBay, if the pictures are not so clear, always request pictures. If the seller is not willing to do that, I do understand that with $5 to $10 records, and I say it's in a warehouse, I'm not making the effort driving to the warehouse, sending you pictures, and you tell me you're not taking the record. I do understand that. But if you're talking about 100 or 200 or even more dollar or euros for a record, you can expect that. You can expect that the seller is sending you pictures and also audio samples if you request that, because it's for him a business with huge money. It's for you a lot of money, and you want to be sure, and you have every right to ask for that. If the seller is not willing to send you this is an absolutely red flag. So just leave it. Anyway, the group never recorded together again, at least what we know of, and all we have is this album, and I just can't praise this album enough. It's one of my favorite soul albums, and I do play it constantly on my turntable, and I love Have I Really Lost You is my favorite one on the album. But like each and every track on this record is absolutely stunning. So if you want to listen to the record, it's on YouTube where you can listen to the full album. If you want to have it on vinyl and say, I'm not willing to spend 100 or 200 on this record, on an original, go for the reissue. But you have the reissue. And once again, I'm thinking it's a needle drop. Some people complain about the less dynamics on that record. But anyway, you still have a great listen. So a little longer episode than anticipated, but for me it's very, very important to point out that you take a deep breath when you find a holy grail, that you look for things that are not really fitting together for a record that's that old, or if it's not been labeled correctly, that you're not trapping into something where you lose a lot of money and being totally frustrated. So I'm wishing you guys a great week. Stay safe, stay healthy, listen to good music, maybe smoke, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.